If you love stories where kindness flips power on its head and secrets detonate like fireworks, stick with me till the last line, then hit follow so you never miss the next twist. My name is Olivia, but people call me Ollie, she says into the mirror. She practices the smile that looks casual, not desperate, warm, not overeager. It's the smile you use with strangers you hope might become something else. Friends, lovers, partners who know where you keep the sugar and why you cried during that one song. She's been stood up twice this month. Tonight she's trying a blind date. The friend of a friend promised he was normal, funny, good at listening, which these days means a miracle. Ollie's dress is simple, a dark sheath with a feathery hem that swishes like a private applause. She tucks a curl behind her ear, grabs her tote, and heads to the bistro her friend picked. Clementines, all varnished wood and lemon zest light. She's 10 minutes early. The host leads her to a table near the window, where vines cling to glass as if they're waiting for something too. She orders a sparkling water and pretends to scroll. A man in grey coveralls enters, pushing a mop bucket. He's tall, broad-shouldered, with calm eyes that take in the room as if the room interests him. He pauses near the host stand. She hears the host murmur something about a leak in the back hallway. The man nods, thanks him, and glides past. The citrus light falls against his jaw. He looks like a poem someone tried to hide inside a manual. Ollie looks back at the door, expecting a guy in a crisp shirt to stride in, maybe awkwardly checking his hair in the reflection of the pastry case. Nobody arrives. Minutes spill away. She watches the janitor rinse a rag, wring it without angst, and approach the back hallway. He moves with an unhurried certainty, like someone who never begs time for mercy. By 7025, her date is late enough to be rude. By 7003, a text arrives, running behind. 20. She types, no worries, and feels the little ache of capitulation. The janitor returns. He has a wet sleeve, a rag slung over one shoulder, and a faint smile tilted like a question. As he passes her table, he says, "Careful with the third tile in the hallway, slippery." I marked it, but the tape's shy. His voice is low, warm. Ollie's gratitude comes easily. Thanks for the heads up. He nods once and continues. At 7,000 Phoebe, the date cancels. Emergency. Rain check? A hollow laugh escapes her. The sparkling water tastes like disappointment with a cheerful hat. She starts to pack up when the man in coveralls appears at the edge of her table, not imposing, just present. You okay? He asks. I will be, she says. Blind date bailed. He angles his head. I'm sorry, me too, she shrugs. But the night's still polite. Maybe I'll be brave and sit at the bar alone, like those women in old movies who order martinis and secrets. He smiles, the kind that understands the joke's soft underbelly. Then I'll clear this table for your dramatic exit. He reaches for the empty glass, but his sleeve brushes the rim and the last bright fizz tilts. He catches the glass mid-fall with a quick, sure hand and rights it, not a drop spilled. Nice save, she says. Good reflexes, he replies. Comes from rescuing things I'm responsible for. Something like courage wakes up in her. What's your name? Aaron, he says, and then, as if confiding, but people call me Ace. Ace, she repeats, tasting the word. Do you always wear the uniform? Most days, he says. It keeps expectations honest. She laughs, surprised at how pleasant it sounds. The host calls him and he nods a farewell. Enjoy your brave bar moment, Ollie. She didn't tell him her nickname. She feels foolish a second, then notices the place card the host had set on her table with the reservation, Olivia Ollie. Of course. At the bar, she orders a small plate of olives and a lemon tart, because lemons are what you make the best stories from. The place hums. On instinct, she glances back toward the hallway. Ace is gone. She decides to be generous with the night anyway. 2 weeks later, Ollie is in the lobby of a corporate building that looks like a glass ship. She's there for a pitch. Her tiny media studio is up for a content contract with a new philanthropic foundation. Her business partner, Danny, texts that she's stuck in traffic. Ollie does the thing she's learning to do, breathe and carry on. She studies the lobby's art, a sculpture made of reclaimed copper that resembles river water frozen mid-laugh. A security guard points her toward the elevator bank. 34th floor, he says. The Carter Foundation. The elevator opens like a secret. She steps in, presses 34 and watches the numbers rise. At 21, the doors slide open and Ace steps in wearing a slate suit. For half a beat, her brain refuses the evidence. The man in coveralls, now in a jacket that fits him like it learned his name, is scrolling through a file on his phone. He looks up, startled to see her. Then warmth. Then something else she can't read. Ollie, he says. Ace, she answers, voice too bright. She clears it. Small city. Sometimes, he says, they ride a floor in silence. She says, where's your mop bucket? He laughs, low. On sabbatical. Respect, she says. The elevator dings. He gestures. After you. The Carter Foundation's lobby is a sunlit garden of books. A reception desk curves like a comma. The receptionist rises, eyes lighting with recognition. Good morning, Mr. Carter, she says. Ollie tries to mask her flinch. She succeeds only a little. Morning, Julia, he says. We'll be in the red conference room in 10. Mr. Carter, she watches Ace. Mr. Carter crossed the lobby with an ease that looks like home. Her mind does the math incorrectly at first, then correctly. Carter, as in Carter Foundation, Carter as in the Carter Industries sign she saw from the street, Carter as in he belongs here. He turns back, expression gentling. You're here for the pitch. Apparently, she says, equal parts mortified and amused. This is unexpected. He pauses at the door as if choosing a language that doesn't bruise. If it helps, I like the dress better than the coveralls. What if I like the coveralls better than the suit? She counters. He smiles without apology. Then I'll earn them. Julia leads her to a smaller conference room. They're running a few minutes behind, Julia says. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea? Water would be great, Ollie manages. She sits. Her reflection in the glass shows a woman who is both exactly herself and also suddenly a person in a different chapter. She has a hunch. Ace didn't lie, he edited. The memory of him at Clementine's, calmly tending to a leak, returns. There was nothing performative in it. He looked like a caretaker who doesn't mind the mess because he believes in the space. The door opens. Ace enters with two colleagues, an older woman whose eyes see too much, and a younger man with a precise part in his hair. The older woman shakes Ollie's hand. I'm Genevieve Rowan, program director, she says. Call me Jen. Jonah Fields, the younger man says, grants manager. And Aaron Carter, Ace says, as if she hasn't learned that in a series of quiet detonations. But Ace is fine. Ollie adjusts, stands straighter, opens her portfolio like a shield she actually believes is a wingspan. She presents storytelling strategy, content pillars, sample scripts that honor dignity without losing drama. She speaks about cameras, not as machines, but as memory harvesters. She's honest about budget tight, but not starving. When she finishes, it feels like stepping off a moving walkway into real ground again. Jen clasps her hands. You care about people in a way that resists pity, she says. That matters to us. Jonah nods. Your distribution plan is smart. The community partners you listed, did you work with them personally? Yes, Ollie says. And if I have to win over the ones we haven't, I'll show up with coffee and a truck and let the truck be full of their ideas. Ace studies her, expression unreadable in an interested way. Why did you start your studio? He asks. My dad used to say stories are the smallest boats that can still carry us across a storm, she says before she decides whether vulnerability is strategic. He taught literature. When he died, I wanted to build boats. The room breathes. Jen's eyes soften. Ace's mouth tucks into a line that could be respect. Afterward, as Jonah and Jen discuss timelines, Ace walks her to the elevator. The hush between them is friendly but charged, like air that knows thunder is possible. About the other night, he begins. She shakes her head, smiling. I wasn't at my most gracious. You were kind, he says. You thanked me for a warning most people would ignore, and you tried to rescue a bad date with good dessert. That's my favorite kind of optimism. She decides to ask the thing you only ask when something matters. Which version of you is true? All of them, he says softly. My mother taught me that the hands that sign checks should know how to hold them up. My family didn't always have this. He gestures to the glass ship of a building. When Dad's company first took off, he made us all do a rotation in facilities. I liked it. Still do. Keeps me honest. And the coveralls at Clementine's, he grins. I was covering for a friend who runs maintenance there. He had to take his son to a recital. I thought I'd be invisible. Turns out you were waiting for a man who didn't deserve your time. So, destiny got noisy. She laughs, surprised at the tenderness she feels. The elevator arrives. Before the doors part, he says, whatever happens with the contract, I'd like to see you again. In whatever uniform you prefer. She pretends to deliberate. I'll check my calendar, she says, and the doors slice open like a second chance. They start with coffee. They move to walks that last long enough to invent inside jokes. She tells him why she avoids grand romantic gestures in public. Her last relationship weaponized audiences. He tells her why he keeps a small toolbox in his car. Things deserve to be fixed when you can. They do not rush. They also do not pretend. Patience is a virtue when their hearts are sprinting. A week later, she gets the contract. Jen calls with the news phrases like pilot season and renewal options and community-led narratives. Ollie sits on the floor of her studio and cries for 10 minutes in private joy, then texts Danny a series of fireworks and keys. Danny FaceTimes screaming. We did it, she says, and for a second the word we is the sweetest song. The first project is a docu-series highlighting small acts of repair. Teachers rewriting policies to be kinder, neighbors who built a ramp after the city delayed permits, a barber who hosts study hours. Ace stays out of the way professionally. No surprise favors, no visible nepotism, but he shows up on the edges. He brings food to the crew after long shoots. He finds a space heater when the location's thermostat fails. He never steals her spotlight. He insists she aim it where she wants. That's when the other story creeps in. Ethan, her ex. He appears in her inbox like mildew, first with the congratulations, heard about the contract. Then a second email that smells like old wine. We should catch up. I've been thinking about what we had. What they had was a beautiful beginning and a slow drip of belittlement. A man who praised their dreams in public, but mocked them in private, who forgot to pay her back because we're a team, who made her feel grateful for crumbs he threw like confetti. She deletes the emails. She blocks his number. But he is a stubborn stain. He shows up at a public panel where she's speaking about the project, sits in the front row with a face that says he discovered her. During Q&A, he stands. Ethan Price, he announces, as if the room cares, media consultant. First off, proud of Olivia here. He emphasizes her full name, a way of claiming history. I'd love to know, aren't you afraid of relying too much on a single funder? Especially one with, a reputation for dramatic pivots. He wears a smile that hopes to be called concern. Ollie doesn't flinch. I'm afraid of many things, she says evenly, but not of asking for help and not of building something better even if it scares me. Also, our agreements are multi-year and community-backed. Pivots are less dramatic when you plan for them. The audience laughs not cruelly, just cleanly. Ethan sits. Later, he corners her near the exit. Hey, he says, smirking. Look at you. Please don't talk at me like I'm a project you abandoned, she says. He leans closer. I miss you. She steps back. You miss control, she corrects. He glances toward Ace, who's across the room speaking with Jen. Ethan's eyes sharpen with calculation. Interesting company you keep now, he says. Word is, he's looking for a particular kind of partner. Word is wrong, she replies. He's looking for people who tell the truth. Ethan's smile curdles. We'll see, he says, and slips away, leaving an aftertaste like rust. Ace joins her. Friend, he asks, carefully neutral. History, she says. And not the kind you display in a museum without context. Do you want me to step in? I want you to keep being yourself, she says. The rest I can handle. He nods. Noted. But the seed Ethan planted, that idea of reputation for pivots, finds soil. Ollie knows foundations can be fickle. She's seen organizations starve between grant cycles. The Carter Foundation has a good record, but good records are still records, not destinies. She starts building Plan Bs at night, alternate funding models, community subscriptions, a touring showcase. It isn't panic, it's prudence wearing work boots. Meanwhile, her project flourishes. The docu-series resonates. Comments flood in from people who feel seen for the first time, not as tragedies but as architects. Ollie's studio grows to 4 full-timers. Danny, who can negotiate with both charm and teeth, becomes the kind of partner Ollie toasts in quiet kitchens at midnight. One afternoon, Jen calls unexpectedly. We need you in the main boardroom tomorrow, she says. There's something you should hear. Ollie's stomach does a small flip. Is everything okay? It will be, Jen says, which is the sort of sentence that pretends to soothe and only partly succeeds. When Ollie arrives, the boardroom is half sunlight, half shadow. Ace stands at the head of the table, jaw set in a way that suggests he barely slept. Several board members occupy chairs like wary birds. We'll get right to it, Ace says. An investigative piece drops tonight about my father's early business practices. Some of it is true. Some is misinterpreted. A portion is malicious. Regardless, the story will trigger pressure on our philanthropic commitments. I'm here to tell you that our obligations to partners do not vanish because the wind yells. He turns to Ollie, the only non-board person in the room. Your project continues. Period. A board member clears his throat. Aaron, optics. Optics matter, Ace says sharply, but ethics matter more. We will not punish communities for allegations leveled at a man who is no longer alive to defend himself. We'll publish a full accounting of where our funds come from, where they go, what checks we've implemented, and how we plan to do better. Transparency is the antidote to gossip. Integrity is the antidote to fear. Gen's mouth lifts, proud. Ollie feels something in her chest expand, the way a room does when you open the right window. After the meeting, Ace escorts her to the hallway. Thank you, she says, for not flinching. I flinch in private, he admits, but I don't change my promises there. She touches his arm. Tell me how to help. Keep making the work, he says. Remind people what this is really for. She nods. On it. The piece drops. That night's digital storm. Comments rage. Defenders rally. It is the internet's usual theater of righteous certainty. Ollie focuses. She releases 3 behind-the-scenes clips showing volunteers brainstorming storylines, teenagers learning to light a scene, a grandmother narrating her first on-camera interview with hands that tremble not from fear but from meaning. The clips are quiet revolutions. Donations surge to the partner orgs themselves. The noise swells, then dissipates like weather. The work continues. Ethan writes again. Dinner? I could help you spin this. She does not reply. He texts a week later from an unknown number. I know things about Carter you don't. Let's talk. She blocks him again. That's when the sabotage happens. A locked external drive goes missing from Ollie's office. A drive with pre-release footage and contracts. There's no forced entry. The next day, a burner account posts a clip from her series with misleading captions implying pay-to-play content. It's petty and recognizable. Ethan always loved twisting context until you doubted your own memory. Ollie meets Ace at a coffee shop with corners that forgive bad news. I think it's my ex, she says. He's sloppy but thorough. Do you have proof? Ace asks. Not yet. Then we gather it, he says calmly. Danny finds a digital trail metadata from the leaked clip, a watermark a lazy thief forgot to crop. The trail leads to a boutique PR firm where Ethan sometimes consults. Ollie's lawyer drafts a cease and desist with just enough teeth. Ace's legal team offers support but doesn't crowd. The firm folds fast, claiming an intern acted alone. No one believes it. Everyone moves on anyway. Ethan finally corners Ollie outside her studio at dusk. You made me do this, he says, hands open as if presenting innocence. I didn't make you do anything, she replies. I simply stopped giving you my silence. He steps closer. He's going to drop you. Men like him. You don't know men like him, she says. You barely know yourself. He laughs, brittle. You think he wears coveralls for the poetry of it? It's all branding, baby. You're a step in his narrative. That may be the saddest thing you've ever said, she murmurs, because it tells me you can't imagine a world where someone chooses humility on purpose. Something in his face crumples, then hardens. He leaves with a promise of trouble, but the street holds its breath and the night returns to ordinary. Ace arrives minutes later, as if he heard the street's small alarm. She feels him in. He listens, then says, "I know how to show you you're not a step in my story." She raises an eyebrow. "I'm listening. Come with me tomorrow morning. The city smells like bread and wet concrete." Ace drives them to a warehouse on the edge of an old industrial district. Inside, light falls in generous rectangles. Rows of workbenches stand ready. In the center, a simple sign, "The Workshop." "We've been renovating quietly," Ace says. "This will be a public space for fixing things, lamps, chairs, bikes, toasters. People can bring broken items and learn to repair them alongside volunteers. No cost." I wanted to open it with someone who understands what repair means beyond objects. He leads her to a corner where cameras sit in neat cases. "This part is yours," he says. "A media nook for recording stories about what gets repaired and why. Owned by your studio. Your team can use the space whenever, no strings. If we end up together, wonderful. If we don't, this still stands. I don't want you to be beholden to our proximity to work. I want the work to be free of us." Her breath leaves and returns like a better version of itself. "You can't keep doing things that make power feel like kindness," she says, trying to joke but failing. "I can," he says softly, "because that's the only kind I'm interested in." She walks the space, runs her fingers along sanded wood, flips a switch, watches a pendant lamp warm from gray to honey. She thinks of her father, how he taught her to reattach a kitchen cabinet door with patience, how the screw that refused would eventually agree if you stopped insulting it and tried again with love. "We'll film opening day," she says. "We'll make it an invitation disguised as a celebration." "Perfect," he says. She turns back to him. "And after we cut the ribbon," she says, heart loud, "maybe we can go somewhere where I can practice believing very good things are allowed to happen to me." "Always," he says. "Opening day is a flood of neighborly miracles." A kid brings in a radio that belonged to his grandfather. A volunteer shows him how to coax the music back like a shy cat. A woman learns to patch the rip in her winter coat and lives with a grin sharp as sunlight. A man fixes his late wife's lamp and tells the camera, "I thought I had to throw it away. I'm glad I didn't." Olive films, cries, laughs, repeats. Ace moves through the room, not as a prince, but as a participant. He kneels to untangle an extension cord. He teaches the teen how to use a level. No one asks him for autographs. They ask him for the right size screwdriver. The docu-series special episode about the workshop becomes their most watched. Donations pour in bolts, in stories, in tools rescued from dusty basements. The city council calls to ask how to replicate the model. The world, temporarily, makes sense. Ethan watches from afar, and for once, silence is his only skill. Ollie and Ace grow into something private and luminous. They don't post anniversaries. They keep their rituals small. Pancakes at midnight, notes in shoes, a shared playlist titled Fixings. When he's had a brutal board meeting, she pulls out the lemon tart recipe. When she doubts herself before a big pitch, he texts a photo of his coveralls draped over a chair, like a promise that humility is still trendy. Months later, the Carter Foundation holds a formal gala, the kind with chandeliers that try too hard. Ollie hates the idea but goes because the community partners will be there. She chooses a sleek dress that feels like armor. Ace, in tuxedo, looks like an apology for every tux that ever tried too hard. During the program, Jen takes the stage. Tonight, she says, we honor a project that refuses to gaze down from a balcony. It sits on stoops and learns names. It celebrates repair over spectacle. Olivia, Ollie, come up here. Ollie walks to the stage, hard doing dangerous choreography. The applause is warm, not performative. As she accepts the award, a small sculpture of interlocking hands, Jen leans in. Tell them the truth, Jen whispers. Ollie faces the crowd. When you fix a chair, she says, voice steady, you're not just saving wood, you're saving the conversation that happens when someone sits. Stories are furniture for the soul. Thank you for believing in ours. She glances at Ace. He's not on stage. He's at the back of the room where the servers slip in and out, speaking with a staffer whose tray wobbles. He takes the tray, steadies it, escorts the staffer to the kitchen door with a quick nod that says, I see you. Then he returns to the shadows, unhurried, unseen by most. After the gala, they walk outside into a night that smells like new rain and good trouble. Come home with me, he says, and she hears the word home, not as an address but as a verb. In his apartment spare, book-lined, a toolbox in the corner like an old friend, he pours tea. She stands at the window, city lights making gentle promises. He joins her, shoulder to shoulder. There's something I want to ask you, he says. The words are soft, but they vibrate with intention. If it's to proofread another speech, I charge in croissants, she says, trying to lighten the gravity pressing between them. He smiles, nerves quickening the corner of his mouth. Not a speech. A life. He takes out a small box, no halo of theatrics, just the honesty of an object holding more than itself. He opens it. The ring is simple, a clear stone held by a satin that looks like two hands refusing to let fragile things fall. I don't need a stage, he says. But I want a witness, even if it's just the moon. Ollie, be my partner. Not a chapter, not a step in my narrative. The whole book we write together and repair when needed. Her heart doesn't leap. It recognizes something it prayed for and walks toward it with both feet. Yes, she says, and the city, being nosy, flickers its lights in approval. News travels. Mostly joy, some gossip. Ethan sends one last email, congrats. Guess you got what you wanted, she replies finally with a sentence she once would have swallowed. I didn't get anything. I chose, and I was chosen back. That's the whole miracle. She blocks him forever and feels no thrill, only a quiet click of a door finally fitted to its frame. The workshop expands. The docuseries wins a small award that feels big because it's from the neighborhood council, not a glitzy jury. The Carter Foundation stabilizes post-storm. ACE starts a fellowship for young people who like tools as much as theories. Ollie hires 2 interns and keeps a jar labeled Boat Fund on the studio shelf. When asked, she tells them the truth. It's for the small boats we build for big storms. They marry in the workshop on a Sunday morning, sunlight pouring through the high windows like a blessing that forgot to be subtle. Guests sit on repaired chairs. Instead of vows about perfection, they promise maintenance, to check the bolts, to notice squeaks, to admit when something needs sanding, to turn toward each other with the humility of people who know things break and can be fixed. Jen cries openly. Danny tosses lemon slices instead of rice. Someone's radio plays a song too old to be cool and too loved to be ignored. Later, when the crowd thins, Ace changes into coveralls. He pulls one from a bag and hands it to Ollie. For our first married act, he says, grinning, I propose we hang that crooked sign by the door. They do. It takes 3 tries to level it. They argue gently about whether the bubble is perfectly centered. They laugh, they kiss, they step back. The sign reads, Everybody's welcome. Bring your broken. Ollie touches the word broken with one finger, then looks at Ace. You know, she says, I used to think wealth was the opposite of broken. Now I know it's just another thing to learn how to hold. And I used to think success was a sparkling lobby, he says. Now I know it's a room full of people who trust each other enough to admit when they need help. They lock the door, turn out the lights, and walk into a night that smells like lemon and promises.